You know, algorithms are pretty much everywhere these days, making decisions that shape our lives. But what happens when one of those decisions is literally a matter of life and death? We're about to take a close look at a system in Spain, a system built to protect women from violence. And we're going to ask some really tough questions that come up when a system like that fails. This is the story of VioGén.
So, this all starts with a woman named Lena. Back in January 2025, she did exactly what you're supposed to do. She went to the police. Her ex-partner was threatening her, and she was frankly terrified. Not just for herself, but for her kids too. Anyone who knew her could see she was in real danger.
And this is where the tech comes in. See, Spain has a tool for this exact kind of situation. It's called VioGén, a really advanced nationwide system. And its job is huge. Assess the risk of domestic violence and really to try and predict if an abuser is going to attack again. It's designed to see the future.
So how does it work? What's actually going on under the hood of this high-tech shield? How does a piece of software even attempt to predict something as messy and human as violence?
Well, the process is very, very specific. It all kicks off when a woman files that first report. An officer sits down with her and goes through a list of 35 questions. And these questions cover everything, from direct threats to more subtle things, like patterns of jealousy or control. The algorithm then crunches all those answers and spits out one of 5 risk levels. And here's the kicker. That level, negligible, low, medium, high, or extreme, directly dictates how much police protection she gets. The algorithm's judgment call becomes her reality.
And this, right here, is where the system's cold, hard prediction runs headfirst into a devastating reality. Let's go back to Lena's story.
So Lena went through the whole process. She answered all 35 questions. The system did its thing, and the result it came up with wasn't high, it wasn't extreme, it was medium, just medium risk. And that single word would change everything. Because of that medium risk assessment, a judge denied her request for a restraining order. She just wasn't considered a high priority. Not even a month later, before her next scheduled police check-in, her ex-partner broke into her home, and he killed her. The most tragic part, Lena's story isn't some horrible one-off anomaly. An analysis found that between 2003 and 2021, 71 other women were murdered after VioGén had assessed their risk as something less than extreme. 71.
It just forces you to ask this huge, incredibly important question. When a system that's supposed to save lives fails so tragically, how do you fix it? How do you even begin to look inside that digital black box to figure out what went wrong so you can stop it from ever happening again?
Well, there's actually a whole professional field dedicated to this. It's called AI auditing, and it's basically a formal process for putting algorithms just like VioGén under a very powerful microscope. Now, an AI audit is way more than just checking for bugs in the code. It is a complete top-to-bottom investigation. Auditors are looking for hidden biases, they're testing for accuracy, and most importantly, they are hunting for the potential for unintended harm. You know, the exact thing that happened here. And this isn't just guesswork either. It's a really rigorous process. Auditors start by mapping out the system's entire flow, the context, the input, the decision it makes, and the action that follows. From there, they identify all the potential risks, they figure out controls to reduce those risks, and then, and this is the key part, they create a plan to test everything. So let's see what that would look like for VioGén.
So what does it actually look like to put VioGén through an audit? Let's kind of walk through the steps an auditor would take one by one.
Okay, so the very first thing an auditor does is figure out who could be harmed by this system, and how. The most obvious person, of course, is the victim. They face the risk of being underprotected, which could lead to injury or even death. But it doesn't stop there. What about the police officers? Their time and resources could be sent to the wrong places. And hey, what about the accused? A flawed system could lead to false accusations and unfair restrictions. An auditor has to map out every single one of these potential failures. The next step is all about accountability. Auditors don't just ask, hey, is this thing working? No, they demand proof. They create a checklist. Is the model being updated with new data? Okay, show us the validation reports. Is the system accurate? We need to see test results that compare its predictions to what actually happened in the real world. Are police officers properly trained on this thing's limits? Great, let's see the training manuals. But this whole idea of auditing, this entire process, it all really hangs on one thing:
getting access to the system. And that has kicked off a huge debate in Spain.
So on one side, you've got technologists and auditors like Gemma Galdon. Their argument is pretty simple. If you don't let independent experts audit these systems, you will never know if they're actually working or if they have some kind of fatal flaw. But on the other side, you've got Spain's Interior Ministry, and they're worried that opening up the algorithm for an audit could expose its secrets to abusers or even compromise the security of the very women it's trying to protect. It's a real classic standoff between transparency and security.
And look, even the people on the front lines, the ones using the tool every day, they get it. Chief Inspector Isabel Espejo, she admits it. She says, "I'm not going to say VioGén doesn't fail. It does." She makes the point that in the real world of domestic violence, total security just doesn't exist. And that's a really sobering thought, a reminder that even our best technology has its limit.
Which leaves us right here, with this final massive question. In a case like Lena's, when a life is lost and an algorithm played a part in the decisions that were made, who's accountable? Is it the officer who typed in the answers, the judge who read the risk score and denied the restraining order, or is it the algorithm itself? As we hand over more and more of these critical judgments to AI, that is a question that we are all going to have to answer.